People who confessed feeling to their crush. What happened afterwards? I was in grade 10. I told my crush that I liked him. He stared at me for a few seconds, gave me a high five, and walked away. We were best friends and didn't talk about it again for a couple years. She told me she was dating a friend of mine. Context: they were keeping the relationship quiet and didn't want anyone to know. I didn't know. Completely apologized. Backed off immediately. Spent a couple weeks at distance to get my feelings in order and let the awkwardness pass. We're still friends. We had been texting and talking on and off for about 2 weeks. And I just stepped out and said, me, do you mind if I shift gears here and say something a little serious? Her. Go ahead. Me. I like you. I mean, I really like you. I'm interested in you. You're the absolute best. I think you're beautiful. I am fascinated by the way you love being around people and they love being around you. I like you. A lot. Her. Well, you should know that I like you back. March 2008 conversation between me and my crush. Our 10th anniversary is in a little over 2 weeks. It went fine. They didn't like me, but it went fine. She told me she could never take me seriously because I joke around too much. LMAO. That's when you say you were joking. I kissed him. I asked if he wanted to be my boyfriend. He said yes. And that he was planning on asking me. Good thing I asked him first. I woke up. He thought I was joking. I felt super awkward, so I just started laughing and died inside a bit. We went out on a date because, as it turns out, she had a crush on me too. We've been happily married for 8 years now and just had our first child 3 weeks ago. Sometimes you just have to go for it. He never said a word. But then he had other things on his mind. The night I told him he was 3 days away from starting 18 weeks of chemo for his stomach cancer and facing a prognosis of 12 to 18 months. He'd said when things got bad for him he'd go away on his own. He's a big, bad, stubborn alpha FCK guy. And that's how he deals. So I had to tell him how I felt while I had the chance. 'Cause I never know when it's gonna be the last time I see him. I'd just become single. And she was having breakup talks with her boyfriend. We'd worked together for months. Became friends and helped each other through hard times. One day I had to tell her. She was more than a friend to me. And to act otherwise felt dishonest. So I told her. She smiled. Kissed my cheek and said, me too. The day she left him. We were watching trains pass and skipping rocks on the waterfront. We kissed next to the tumble roar of a freight train. And spent the night together with wine and hours of talking and laughing. Showed up to work next day tired but happy. Spent a few weeks in a confused bliss after our relationships had ended and we fell for each other. Then she moved away and boy am I pining over her. It was a bold move to tell her. But I'm grateful that I did. This actually just happened to me, so he said that he'd keep it in mind and then we started talking about Mario Kart. Hit him with triple red shells. She laughed at me and said why the hell would I date a disabled boy when there are so many normal boys at the school, are you stupid? It came out of nowhere since we were in the same class. Talked all the time both in person and on Skype and I had no idea she of all people could be that hateful. Edit. Wow, I go to bed and my inbox is flooded. Thanks for the kind words everyone. Honestly. FCK her. Sounds like an extremely shallow person. She agreed to make out with me. Then we hooked up that night. 3 years later we married. Currently have a 4-year-old and very happy family. If I hadn't said something, none of this would have happened. He left me on read. He asked me out just before I could confess. He apparently had been thinking about asking me out for a couple days. But I had had a crush on him for a couple months. Invited him over for Christmas since he didn't have family in the state. I had no commitments. and generally didn't want to be alone due to some personal issues with an ex-roommate. He stayed. For some reason. He just pulled me against him on the couch and we just watched videos for hours. Then he asked me out. Shortly after, I admitted to the large crush I had had on him and he was like, oh, I knew. We stayed friends and there wasn't much awkwardness between us. Surprisingly. I, female, told him that I had feelings for him immediately after getting out of a bad relationship. He said, oh. Awkward, because he thought the guy was nice and would feel bad dating me. We still dated anyway. And got married in 2017. I was on the other side of this. Crush was confessed to me. I wasn't interested but wanted to stay friends. Over the next 6 months we became best friends. Then I developed feelings for him. Confessed my crush. 3 years later we're engaged. I'll get back to you after Monday. Update. I need to become a statistician. Denied. I never technically did, we just slowly went from friends to dating. Your username might have something to do with it. Scene 14. Rejection after rejection after rejection. Also, systematically got the "it's not you, it's me" response. Still single at 23. Got rejected 7 times now. I'll tell you tomorrow when I do. Deal? He said you and then laughed at me. She said she didn't want a serious relationship, but still wanted to hang out. A week later I find her back with her ex. Got ghosted. Lost faith in all relationships. And now live in a van down by the river working as a motivational speaker. I find your thoughts of me surprising but not creepy. No. But you are correct, I am definitely not a single girl. And unlike most women I do remain true to him. No sense in simply dating someone you don't plan an entire future and life with. Yeah, no? Apostrophe. Then 2.5 years later I spent a night getting drunk with her in her apartment and she was flirting with me but I was too scared to do anything about it. She doesn't know at all and I had this huge crush on her for years. It was my last chance to ever see her. She was walking with her friends and walked to her and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" She carried on walking and said no. And that was it. Depression. He was in the middle of telling me he was starting to develop a crush for another person and I said, well, I'll be honest. I'm feeling a bit jealous because I've had a crush on you this whole time. He had no clue because I'm super bad at flirting and he figured I'd never be interested. Figured I just thought of him as a friend. Anyways. He completely abandoned that crush he had and we went out for 6 years but went our separate ways eventually on good terms. Still really good friends. First time I ever did it. I was very harshly rejected. That was in 6th grade. Second time I was in 8th grade and it turns out they were gay and I discovered on Valentine's Day when I had something to give them to confess that they were dating my current best friend. They had a messy breakup not long afterwards. Third time I was a sophomore and it went very well and they kindly said that they were flattered but preferred to stay friends. Really goes to show how the maturity changed from being harshly rejected in 6th grade by an immature boy to being kindly thanked in high school. Not together anymore. Yes, this is real. I was 16 young and dumb. She was 15 smart and sweet. She said yes because we'll see each other more. She rejected my wish for a relationship. She wanted to be just friends but I rejected her wish for a friendship. Not out of resentment, but self-preservation. Staying just friends would have been self-inflicted emotional pain. About 3 years of awkward social interactions among our friend group as she constantly reminded me that she thought I was a good guy. Maybe someday. While I continued to be dumb enough to believe she just wasn't ready for anything and I should just continue being friendly and try not to make things weird. It was weird. I eventually moved cities looking for work. Got married. 2 kids. F'd tons of debt but overall a good time. She's stayed in our small town. Gone hardline Christian conservative. And awful. And I'm pretty sure if I'd tried to actually have a relationship with her I'd probably have topped myself just to spite her. So, bullet dodge there. Don't get too hung up on your first teen crush, kids. The person confessed having a crush on me as well. We sadly didn't work out together, but to have you crush liking you back is the best.